The reason we only stock D'Addario strings is because D'Addario strings are perfect.
When people come in here, they think that we get them for free or something like that, but we don't. We have no other reason except for dependability and tone.
Hey, I'm John Bohlinger with Premier Guitar. We're in the basement east in Nashville, and I'm with Chris Buck of Cardinal Black. Chris, hey man, I'm so glad that you're here.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
God, yeah, I've been a fan, I don't know, for years now. Found you on, social stuff, and God, man, just...
That's very kind of you. It's, yeah, not going to be as long as I've been a fan of you guys.
Well,
I'm trying to play it cool, but this is a bucket list, man.
Okay, great.
Cool.
Well, that's great. Well, okay, this guitar is the one I've seen you on the most part.
Yeah.
So tell me about it.
So yeah, this is kind of number one, really. It's, I guess it's the best part of 4 years old, actually. Just turned 4 years old. It looks considerably older. That's
high mileage.
High mileage, and the beauty of nitrocellulose, I think, to a degree.
Yeah.
It was very kindly built for me by the Yamaha Custom Shop in Calabasas. Picked it up in NAMM, actually at NAMM 2020. So was, yeah, kind of planning to get it out on the road straight away, and then obviously for the better part of 2 years, no gigs, but played it to death in the house. Did so much filming and recording on it, all that kind of time through lockdown and COVID. Yeah, it's a high mileage guitar, and it's only got higher really with the amount of touring that we've done with Cardinal Black in the past kind of 2 years, I guess, since we were allowed out of the house again. But it was virtually new when I got it. There were a couple of kind of checking marks that I'd asked Yamaha to just kind of set it on its way a little bit. If anything's too new, it stares me. It just kind of scares me that I'm going to be the guy to put a ding in it. So if something's not necessarily pristine, more power to it. But yeah, all of the kind of wear, all of the the grime and everything else about it is very much genuine road wear.
So how is this different from, say, the one that somebody could go to Guitar Center and buy? Did they alter it a little bit from the original? I think
design? it was a great disappointment to them that my specs were pretty much just make me as is, straight off the shelf. I fell in love with a 502, which was pretty much this in terms of spec.
Yeah.
Loved everything about it. Loved the neck profile. Loved the kind of the appointments of it, of the the wraparound, the CP90s, three-way switch, volume and tone. Everything about the kind of off-the-shelf guitar was what I connected with. So when it came to actually speccing something, I didn't really want to deviate from that too much. So it's pretty much as you would have got. Obviously, the Revstar, as it's on its kind of second iteration since then, they've changed it subtly. So there's slightly different neck kind of pocket. It's slightly bigger than newer ones, but I guess unbeknownst to me, they were kind of guinea pigging me a little bit in terms of this one's chambered, which is obviously a standard feature of all the new Revstars. So the only thing that actually differentiated this from the standard Revstar of the time was the fact that it was chambered. So it's pretty lightweight, and it's beautifully resonant as well. So clearly I love it.
Yeah, great. I reviewed one of the early ones, and I was shocked at how great that thing sounded. They
fly under the radar, I think, for whatever reason. I guess it's, Yamaha are obviously such a big company that do so many things incredibly well. I guess, there's not necessarily the romance attached to, I don't know, something that was around in the 50s maybe. So I think it's a little bit of an uphill battle sometimes to try and convince people that a new guitar is, an option. But honestly, that was kind of, what made me fall in love with it in the first place was the fact that I saw it in a guitar store, and not only was it new design, but it wasn't particularly derived from anything else. It's not an S-type, it's not a T-type, it's not a Les Paul, it's not any of those kind of newer guitar designs that we tend to see a lot of. It's very much its own thing. It's actually derived from a Superflighter, which was a Yamaha model in the 70s.
Right.
A little bit obscure, but as far as I knew, it was a kind of a new design entirely, and it consequently didn't have the baggage attached to it of a Strat or a Tele or a Les Paul or any of the kind of classic designs, Straight away I was going to be able to put my own stamp on it and be kind of indelibly associated, for better or for worse, with it. So
You really are. I mean, you are the guy you see playing that. I think, God, who is it? There's somebody else.
Matteo Mancuso?
Yes.
Yeah, the Italian. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's terrifyingly good.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my
There's
God.
players that inspire you, and there's players that make you want to put down the guitar forever. And he unfortunately falls into the latter category.
Oh
so.
God. Yeah. Touched by the hand of God.
Yeah,
Incredible.
yeah. Two fingers of God, I think, in this case. It's like watching E.T. play guitar. So.
Right.
But yeah, he's incredible. He's a lovely guy as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Brilliant. And okay, and you went with the P90s, but I think do they have a humbucker one as well?
They do, actually. Yeah, I'm not sure what the current kind of lineup offers, to be honest. I've kind of lost touch with it a little bit since this has been my number one. But yeah, this was in terms of its appointments, was a standard option at the time. The two P90s and the wrap over. But yeah, it's pretty much as it would have been off the shelf. Save for the nitrocellulose. Obviously, that wasn't the colour that they were offering. So I love the idea of a gold top.
So did you requested a gold top?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about your 52 Les Paul.
Yeah.
Gold top is honestly my kind of bucket list.
Right.
Assuming that a lottery win is not on the horizon, I'm not sure how likely any of it's likely to be. A burst would be lovely, but again, I think I'd probably have to sell my firstborn and some consecutive borns as well. So a gold top is my kind of dream guitar. So in terms of its spec and its everything else, it was kind of my attempt to get as close as to golden era gold top.
Yeah, well, you know what? Someday you'll probably have one, and you'll probably like this one better.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
You know.
It's a cliche, I guess, but this is probably the guitar which I've kind of felt most at home with in my life, I guess. It very much does feel like an extension of me at this point. Purely because of the amount of miles put on it. The amount of shows, the amount of touring, the amount of recording, everything that we've done to date has involved this guitar so heavily. It's me at this point. So.
Yeah. What strings are you running?
Ernie Ball Mega Slinkies, which are the 10.5. It just makes me sound more discerning than I actually am. If you say you use 10.5 gauge strings, people assume there must be some complex reason behind it. But no, it's 10s around the house are perfect. I could probably get away quite comfortably with 11s. When you're on the road, it's adrenaline. It's being kind of tour ready or tour hard, I guess. Your fingers, your calluses build up. I'm trying to talk myself out of the how hard I hit guitars when I play live. It's just adrenaline. You get in front of a sold-out room and kind of everything's pumping. You start hitting the guitar unnecessarily hard, and of course the strings start, wavering in and out of tune. So 10.5 is a good compromise of works at home, works on the road as well. So, but yeah, Ernie Ball Mega Slinkies.
And speaking of that, the way you play, I don't know, man. You seem to go between the pick and the fingers so effortlessly, and there's not like a huge disparity in I don't know, in volume. You have it so dialed in.
I'm heavy-handed, to say the least. So I kind of tend to dig in. Playing guitar for me has always been quite a tactile kind of, very much a kind of physical thing. It's your right hand is as integral to your sound as your left hand, if not more so, to be honest, as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, my playing is very much a kind of a combination of what's going on with both hands. So.
Now, when you are using a pick, what picks do you go with?
They are not Ernie Ball, I tell a lie. Jim Dunlop 1.14.
There we go.
Slash to blame for that one. Huge Slash fan, when I was younger and especially now still.
Yeah.
Basically read what he used, thought, well, if it's good enough for him, it'll be good enough for me. And that was probably when I was, 13 maybe. So fast forward the better part of 20 years and I'm still old faithful. So.
Yeah, it's great. It's funny, we just did this rig rundown on Slash, and the tech gave me some of his picks, and I was feeling like, God, these really do feel good.
Yeah, I don't like a pick to flex particularly. I could probably get away with heavier, but it's just, again, it's something that I'm so used to at this point that it kind of makes sense to, well, if it works, if it ain't broke, as they say, I'll kind of stick with it. So, it's just, omnipresent. Right.
Okay, so that's number one, but you've got two others with you tonight.
I do.
Tell me a little bit about these other ones.
So, the black one here is, I've got entirely Scott Holiday from Rival Sons to blame for my current Firebird kind of obsession. Huge fan of Rival Sons, huge fan of Scott's in particular. I just think he's such a kind of inventive, underrated guitar player.
Yes.
So I'd kind of been longing for a Firebird for a little time. Obviously, this isn't a Firebird; it's a Firehawk. To avoid any litigious kind of inclinations, I imagine. Made by Michael Springer in France. He was kind enough to come along to see us in Luxembourg, I do believe. We were on tour somewhere in Europe, and he came along. gave me a bell and said, look, I've got a guitar I'd like you to try. Are you interested? So we brought it along to sound check, just fell in love with it. It was such a cool guitar. So we kind of kept in touch, and I guess it was inevitably going to end in a guitar at some point, you know. So yeah, typical Henry Ford style, you know, any colour but black.
Right.
But it's just an exceptional guitar. It's yeah, kind of fulfills a little bit of a niche within the set, I guess. I'm a big Jazzmaster fan as well, so it was a little bit of a toss-up as to whether it was this or the Jazzmaster that came with me to the US. Basically any guitar with a vibrola or a kind of vibrato arm, I guess, and you know, something that sounds a little bit wiry and aggressive. And Firebird pickups, for anyone who's never kind of delved into that, are very much their own thing. And wiry and aggressive is probably a good place to start, you know, in terms of description. So
totally, yeah.
It's a very cool guitar.
And the vibrola, does that hunker in tune pretty well for you?
It does actually, yeah. As of yet, anyway. I mean, I wouldn't go full Floyd Rose on it, but as of yet, for the abuse I've given it, it's been very solid. It's tuning is such a bugbear of mine. If it's not perfectly intonated, it's not perfectly in tune, you know, kind of, yeah, really annoys me. So that's the kind of first thing to check on any guitar with one of these wiggle sticks. So.
Yeah. Do you know what kind of pickups he put in?
They're a company from the UK actually called Sunbay. I've used some of their stuff in the past. Amazing pickups, and again, these sound particularly good. I've had a little bit of experience with some vintage Firebirds, and you know, this is comfortably on par, you know. So yeah, absolutely over the moon with this. It's the one that he gave me initially to try on tour was wired slightly unusually, a little bit more kind of typically Firebird, I guess, which is obviously fairly atypical for like a Les Paul or something like that. But this is, you know, just standard 50s wiring for, you know, volume, tone, which is all my brain can compute. So
sure.
Yeah, if it deviates from what I'm used to, I'm all at sea. So yeah, it's a beautiful guitar.
God, yeah. Okay, so let's hear this thing. God, great.
It's a cool guitar.
And what I loved it, even though we were on the bridge, it didn't have that like offensive bright
spiky.
bite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was very present, but not like painful.
Take your head off, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's, again, something, you know, kind of obviously playing with my fingers a lot. Something I've always been super conscious of is not having that ice picky kind of top end.
Right.
So, I mean, you kind of, you know, from venue to venue, you're at the mercy of the PA system and any frequencies that are inclined to leap out. But trying to kind of keep everything under control on stage is a good start, and obviously the pickups are literally the starting point of that. So yeah. And I mean, that just proves, I mean, tone is in the hands. You can make it darker or brighter, kind of depending on how you're. Well, it depends what you're trying to sell, doesn't it? So
yeah.
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Okay, well let's see the next one. It's a. Now this third one is a loner, a backup just in caser.
Just in case, yeah. So this is new today, and unfortunately back tomorrow. This belongs to Mark Agnesi actually from Gibson.
Yeah.
So yeah, indebted to Mark for digging me out of a hole a little bit. It just terrifies me slightly, the idea of doing a gig without a backup guitar, because I've got the Firehawk, but it's not a like-for-like swap pretty much with the Revstar. So this was a little bit of a last-minute panic driving down to Nashville this morning. A couple of quick Instagram messages, and Mark was kind enough to loan me this. A lot of our second record, which is coming out later in the year, was actually recorded on 55 TV Yellow Junior out in Zurich in Switzerland. Belongs to Cyril, the studio owner, and sacrilegiously I'd kind of overlooked not just juniors, but single pickup guitars, I guess generally. I mean, why would you limit yourself to just one pickup? It seems a little counterintuitive, but just that junior in particular just kind of blew me away. And having spent a very brief 5 minutes with this, just double checking it's in tune and ready to go should the worst happen. It's a gorgeous guitar. So, and again, it's kind of pre-knocked about, so I don't have to panic too much.
Yeah,
so.
Perfect. Well, I want to hear this thing.
Yeah, me too. I'm intrigued.
Let's see. So let's see it.
I mean, it's P90, so typically noisy. in tune when I didn't buy it. It's a cool guitar.
Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah, it sounds. It says, is that a 5960?
I guess so. Yeah. When did the double cut come in? The double cut was.
I think, was it 60 or 59? You know what? One of you nerds online.
Absolutely.
Go ahead and, put it in the notes. We'll rely on you. You can hash it out.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a 58 reissue serial number, so that that answers the question. It's a 58 reissue. But yeah, it's a gorgeous guitar. I might change the strings on that one before we get going later, but yeah, very cool. So yeah, just a mark for kind of digging me out of a little bit of a hole there, because that was panic stations.
Yeah, sure.
We've just had to travel pretty lightly to come to the US. You know, the excess baggage costs are obviously pretty high,
right.
So I guess the more we can kind of keep that under control. You know, my pedalboard weighs more than the plane that it travels on, so
right.
Yeah, the less the better, really.
What strings are you running?
These are D'Addario NYXLs.
And the D'Addario NYXL.
But they're D'Addario strings, and I've been using those since forever, and I love them.
D'Addario strings as well.
D'Addarios.
Right.
D'Addario. I've been using D'Addario.
I'm a fan of D'Addario.
Started using these D'Addarios. I like the D'Addario NYXLs.
So D'Addario, and I got the NYXLs on here.
Okay, let's talk amps a little bit.
Yeah. So again, you probably know more about these amplifiers than I do. This is the first time I plugged into them. Again, it's kind of, you know, touring at the relative mercy of rented backline. Very fortunately, I have a good relationship with Victory, who were kind enough to make sure that there were a couple of amps waiting for me. So it's a V40 Deluxe, which is their kind of, you know, Fender-y kind of Deluxe Reverb type amp.
Right.
This one sounds particularly good, actually. I've had a couple of V40s, and this one is a good one, which is a good start. And then we've got a Deluxe Reverb as well. So that's, again, beg, steal and borrow jobby. On the way into Nashville this morning, we stopped off at Mythos. And Zach was kind enough to loan me that. He's done a couple of modifications to that one. There's an Alessandro speaker in it, and he's done something with the first channel as well. I think the first channel is more Bassman-esque, and then the second channel is more typically Deluxe Reverb, but there's an Alessandro speaker in it. Obviously he's changed the knobs. It's a little bit of a kind of idealized Deluxe Reverb in that respect.
So did Victory, are they dropping them at the different gigs where you're playing, or they just give you one to
No,
tour?
so it's a relatively sporadic tour. It's a little bit disingenuous to call it a tour, to be honest. We will have done 3 shows in the US by the time that we leave. It's basically planting the seed for coming back, and you know, kind of a little bit more of a kind of fully fledged run. But the response has kind of blown us away. I mean, tonight at the Basement East in Nashville, sold out. We're playing the Troubadour in Los Angeles. That's been sold out for a couple of weeks now. So yeah, we've been lucky. So
that's a big deal.
Oh man, honestly, it's blown us all away. You know, me especially. But Victory kind enough to kind of make sure that their amps waiting for me wherever I need to go. So there's a backline company in Los Angeles dropping one off as well. So touchwood is as good as that one.
Oh great. Well, and you're not running in stereo. You're running like a double mono.
Yeah, dual mono. Running the 2 amp thing for a live setup. There's a degree of redundancy in that, just in case, you know. We've all been there with an amp blowing up, and obviously it's not an ideal scenario. It's even less ideal if you're trying to change amps in and out in front of, you know, 600 people or whatever. So yeah, there's a degree of that, but I've just got so used to running 2 amps on stage. It's a size thing, it's a width thing. You know, standing in the middle of that and feeling the kind of sound surround you is quite a nice feeling, and knowing that there's probably enough volume between the 2 of them that you can kind of lean into it and get a little bit of feedback. It's just it's a practicality thing, and it's a kind of taste thing, I guess, ultimately. Right. So,
yeah, I love the way you do utilize feedback. It just seems like you just kind of lean over a little bit, and
absolutely.
Yeah, it's such a part of your thing. It's great.
It's I tend not to run particularly loudly on stage. I don't know whether the 2 amp thing kind of facilitates you getting feedback a little easier, maybe, because often it's not a volume thing. It's a proximity thing. It's just a situational thing, I guess.
Sure.
You know, and having the 2 amps seems to kind of expedite any kind of music. It also expedites 60 cycle hum, you know, or 50 cycle hum, depending on which side of the pond. So but yeah, it's nice to have the 2 of them.
Okay, do you feel, talking amps, do you feel that they sound a little bit different when you're plugged into 120 as opposed to like when you're
man, that's a rabbit hole.
Right, right. I mean, because I've noticed when I'm in Europe, when I'm plugged into one of those boxes that brings it up to that it does feel a little different. I kind of like it better. It seems a little more compressed or
Both
whatever?
of the amps that I run on a regular basis at home, I have a 66 Super Reverb,
Cool.
which someone, for some reason in their infinite wisdom, decided to turn into a kind of brown panel Super Reverb, which obviously technically speaking doesn't exist. But at least aesthetically, someone tried to turn it into a kind of somewhat fictional amp. That still has not its original transformer, but kind of Mercury clone magnetics kind of replacement transformer that runs on 110. So I have to use a step-down transformer with that. I have a 61 or 62, I can't remember, brown panel constant as well. Again, 4x10 with a harmonic tremolo. That has its original transformer, so that runs on the 110. So I'm so used to that sound. I'm probably not the best guy to ask whether there is a kind of discrepancy between them. But again, I think the fact that both of these amplifiers are designed to run on 110 kind of feels like you're getting the best out of them. But the Pedalboard was an interesting one because that obviously is the same pedalboard that I use in the UK. It's gig rig powered, and the gig rig stuff runs on 230 and 110.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about kind of step-up transformers, which we're doing with the keys, which we're doing with the Roland SP8SX, SP, wherever it is, Alphabet. So there's a lot of our stuff running on step-ups, you know. So that is pretty much the only thing that hasn't had to run on a step-up. But to my untrained ear, sounds pretty much the same. So.
Have you noticed there's a thing with B3s when they it changes the intonation when you change power.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
we did
catastrophe.
We used quite a lot of B3 in a studio Switzerland on an upcoming record, and it blew my mind. Stuff like, what was it as well? We used a Moog, and I didn't realize you could tune stuff like that. It's kind of like, I just thought that was just always in tune, but no, you have to make sure it's in tune. So like I said, tuning is a bugbear of mine, but I'll leave the keys stuff to the keys players.
Right. Okay, well, let's get into this to this very heavy, very cool pedal board.
The Behemoth, yeah.
Yeah, take me from boot to bonnet.
The Behemoth. I mean, literally the first pedal in the chain is the wah pedal. It's just a standard Dunlop kind of crybaby wah pedal.
Running on batteries?
Running on batteries, yeah. I guess I could kind of, rig something up with a bit of power coming from the board, but I've yet to have a battery go down on me.
Right,
So
God, they last for years.
Yeah, I mean, tonight's the night now, of course, I said that. So, to be honest, it's not that I don't like wah pedals so much as I don't trust myself with wah pedals. That's a John Mayer song, isn't it? Just, if it's there, I'll stand on it, and it'll just turn into a kind of wah fest. So having specific moments in the set which are reserved for wah pedals kind of keeps me in line, you know. So there's a track called Jump In, for which the riff is wah pedal with a load of reverb.
Let's hear that.
Sounds like this. Apologies for the hum. More of a kind of filter thing than it is a wah pedal. I mean, it's still identifiably wah pedal, I guess, but it's not like it's waka waka waka. Which is what it would turn into if I didn't kind of keep myself on the straight and narrow. So
it takes a lot of discipline not to go to that.
Totally, it's a little bit tempting. So the next pedal in the chain then, Plug is actually my own signature pedal. It's an electric Lightning made by Thorpe Effects in the UK. It's only been out, I guess, a couple of weeks at this point. But
congratulations.
Yeah,
cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a long time in the making. I guess it was probably the better part of 2 years that we were kind of prototyping and going back and forth various ideas. It's a valve pedal. It's a valve overdrive and boost. So I guess a little bit unusual in that respect, but it's cool. It's quite aggressive. It's kind of fairly typically Marshall, I guess, you know, in its EQ layout and in its sound. So it's any kind of more aggressive moments of the set where you need that kind of visceral kind of overdrive and not an overdrive with all the edges rounding off and sweet and lovely. That's where the electric comes.
I got to hear this. I got to hear it. It's ugly glory.
Yeah. It's like me, really. Modeled after myself.
That's great. I would never turn that off. It sounds
Yeah,
so
it's
good.
cool. It's, I mean, all of the usual cliches, I guess. It's amp-like, it's very dynamic. How much of that is just because of the topology of the pedal, or the design is particularly responsive? How much is because there's a valve or a tube in it? I don't know, but it's a gorgeous sounding pedal. This lovely sounding boost side of it as well, which is
Okay, so that's what the right side is?
work independently or kind of combined.
Oh, perfect.
So it's cool. The boost side is absolutely one of those I don't want to turn that off kind of thing. It's like a sweetener, it just fattens everything out. This a lovely kind of low end thump with it, but it kind of does something particularly sparkly and sweet to the high end as well. So the boost side is a little bit more-ish. So should we try that a minute?
Yeah,
So
by all
let's
means.
make sure it's set kind of accordingly. So.
Love it.
It's nice. I've yet to find an amp that it doesn't improve in some respect, which is cool. It's
Man, particularly for a backline gig, how nice you can carry your tone with you.
I think that was kind of part of its design process. Was Adrian was keen to make it as versatile as possible and fairly flexible in that respect. In whatever you were faced with, whatever you find when you turn up at a venue, that's there as a little bit of a kind of sort you out kind of pedal.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. I don't know if it's the tube that does it, but wow.
Who knows?
It just sounds great. Okay, that's an excellent start. So where are we going from there?
Out of there, we are going into the 29 pedals Una, which is a buffer, and that's about as much as I understand about that.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah.
It buffs.
It does, and it buffs well.
Okay.
It's buffers are a little bit of a kind of alien technology to me, to be honest. But it just kind of seemed to improve things when it was in the kind of line. There's not, thanks to the G3, the Gig Rig G3, there's not actually a tremendous amount of pedals in line as such. Obviously, I kind of save the tap dancing as much as anything else, but they all run through the switcher, which saves the kind of, or preserves the signal, I guess, ultimately. But sticking that in the chain did undoubtedly improve things. Obviously, it has a foot switch. It's not as though you particularly want it on and off, but it does have a fuzz in the loop. So underneath the hood, we have a Mythos Golden Fleece, the blackout version, which kind of that basically operates the fuzz pedal. Momentarily removes the 29 pedals Una from the signal chain, because obviously fuzz pedals typically don't like buffers.
Yeah.
So if you kick that in, it turns on the fuzz. So
so automatically when you hit that one, it
turns on the fuzz. What I particularly like about it is it's right next to the foot switch for a really dramatic tremolo, which when you're as clumsy as I am, you can guarantee that you'll get trem instead of fuzz at a particularly climactic moment of a solo. But I don't know, it keeps me on my toes. So to be honest, especially running kind of like Fendery clean amps, I tend not to use the fuzz in isolation. It's a little bit kind of ice picky, serrated edge, kind of aggressive. But stack it with an overdrive pedal, and it kind of, I guess it simulates you running it into a more overdriven amp. It's the kind of more typically Hendrix, Eric Johnson-y kind of thing. So we're kicking the fuzz.
Love it.
Just about in tune.
Yeah, that was great. I'm not normally a fuzz guy, but God, that's dialed in.
So that was it actually stacked with another Mythos pedal, actually. That was it stacked with the Molnir, or the Mulnir. Every time I say it, I get grief. which again is hidden under the hood. So it's
Okay, yeah. What's the?
Klon-esque, Klon
Okay.
inspired. So it's that kind of typical Klon mid-range, I guess, which then in due course fattens out the fuzz. So the combination of the two of them works particularly nicely. So yeah, it's just fuzz pedals sound great, but not necessarily within the context of the band setup, I guess.
Sure.
It's a little bit overwhelming if it's in isolation.
Yes. Okay. So after that, where are we now?
Then we were running into the G3, the Gig Rig G3, which obviously saves me kind of Michael Flatley in my way around the stage too much.
Sure.
So pretty much everything then, to a point anyway. Actually, I tell a lie, we missed one. We missed the A-Lane Drive, actually. Again, a Mythos pedal.
Oh.
It's kind of transistory, kind of quite aggressive sounding overdrive, which is something I've kind of started to lean towards in recent years. For the longest time, it was, the more edges it rounded off, the better, because the better it made me sound. But kind of the more I've grown up, I think I'm starting to kind of veer into the warts and all category of overdrive. So if we kick on the A-Lane Drive for a second. It's cool. It's subtle, but there's a kind of hairy top end on it.
Yeah, that's
again,
great.
like myself.
Yeah, right. Okay, from there.
Out of the A-Lane Drive into the G3, the Gig Rig G3. Like I said, kind of saves me sort of tap dancing too much. So you've got a fair amount of pedals in there, a fair amount of gain pedals as well. The band joke and call the board the 50 Shades of Gain. It's not far off, if I'm honest. So the first pedal is labeled Breaker. It's essentially a Marshall Blues breaker, but it's made by Snouse Electric Company out of Denver, Colorado, I do believe. So it's essentially a Marshall Blues breaker, and it's set fairly subtly.
That's great.
Not too drastic in isolation. That gets stacked a lot with the Mjolnir, the Mjolnir, however you say it. So we kick those two in together. Quite a nice, aggressive, bitey, kind of mid-pushed kind of combination.
Yeah.
So that's part of the core rhythm sound of the kind of set, I guess.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing about all these shades of dirt.
Yeah.
You really need them because it's like, to me, I rarely want clean.
Yeah, that's exactly it, and it gives you a little bit of flexibility then if things change from venue to venue. Amp to amp, like I said, this is the first time I've ever seen these amplifiers before. It's relatively similar to what I use at home, but
yeah.
I mean, a Deluxe Reverb is not particularly comparable to a Super Reverb,
No.
So
they're distant cousins.
Distant cousins, at best, I think.
Yeah.
So it kind of, it gives you that flexibility and it gives you a little bit of versatility should you need it. But as much as anything else, it just gives me something to play with. I'm a big fan of pedals. I'm a big fan of playing around with boards and just kind of getting far too involved in these things,
Yeah,
It's a rabbit hole and one I'm down head first at this point. So.
Yeah, I get it, man. Okay, so what after that?
So the one we glossed over momentarily then, labelled as small on the G3, is the small speaker overdrive. Again, kind of referencing those kind of grittier, kind of more aggressive sounding overdrive pedals. That's a good example. It's a small speaker overdrive made by Great Eastern Effects, I do believe. East here being relative to Cambridgeshire in the UK, I do believe. So yeah, it's great. It's one of my favourite pedals in the last couple of years, and sounds like this.
right.
I think the idea of it was that it was kind of meant to emulate like an old tweed champ at,
Sure.
at the the kind of point of exploding, I guess. And if you kind of crank it, it does that particularly well. But it's a great sounding pedal.
Yeah, love that tone. Okay, what do we got next?
More gain pedals, unsurprisingly.
Good, great.
KOT, fairly self-explanatory. It's the king of tone. That still, to be honest, kind of comprises the bulk of the set. I guess it's one of my favourite overdrive pedals of all time. I feel a little bit of a cliche for saying that. Obviously, the wait list these days is obscene, whatever it is. I bought it, kind of on the waiting list. I waited, I think, a year maybe.
Wow.
Which at the time felt like an eternity, but
yeah.
relative to now, I'd probably be retired by the time I get one, I think. But it was very much worth the wait. I wouldn't be, kind of going out of my way to pay whatever reverb prices are these days. But it's a great pedal, and it's just, as I said, it's the rhythm for most of the set, to be honest. So.
Killer.
Does the job,
Yeah, don't you find though, like having all those options on different nights, one might just be perfect, and the next night,
Absolutely.
it's totally wrung.
Absolutely. Like I said, it varies from venue to venue, size of venue.
Yeah.
Typically, I find the older I get, the less gain I play with. I think we've all been guilty of, just kind of needlessly gaining it up on occasion,
yeah.
But I think it's a restraint thing. It's a kind of bearing in mind what else is happening on the stage. Obviously, Cardinal Black is a pretty kind of involved setup, I guess. We've got keys going on. There's, quite a few elements, and knowing your place and knowing how to kind of sit in your place as well is crucial. So,
Sure.
yeah. Next up, we have the Cali 76. I imagine that's going to be horrendously noisy today.
Oh, good. I want to hear it.
Exactly.
I want to hear this. I want to hear that 60 cycle while I'm just really
taking
really
everyone's
come
head
to
off.
life. Yeah.
So there's a track in the set called On My Own, which is kind of more of an ambient kind of guitar thing, I guess. And there's a riff in that, which involves the Cali 76. So if we kick that on, and the big old cavernous delay on the golden reverberator, and a little bit of overdrive, we get... Enough reverb to take down a horse.
Yeah, and that's the University Audio Golden.
Yes, so that's that big kind of cavernous reverb there. It was funny, it's endless discussions with our front of house engineer as to how much is too much reverb. I think that's probably too much, to be honest, for this size of venue. You can kind of get away with different amounts, in different rooms. But
well, I loved it, just like that.
There we go.
I think you could even add more.
I'll send them in your direction when our front of house is complaining. I'll send them in your direction.
John said it's cool.
John said it's fine.
Yeah.
Don't fight him. He's bigger than me.
Okay.
So, Cali 76, the boost for the solo is the Keeley Katana. Literally just makes me louder. The tremolo, again hidden underneath, is the Moore Trelicopter. Dangerously, perilously close to the to the fuzz foot switch. But that's for the start, Tell Me How It Feels, one of our tracks, which has a kind of really dramatic kind of like... very Tom Morello kind of thing. It does that one function and it does it very well. So,
and because it's hidden underneath there's no changing
absolutely
on the gig. It is
totally
what it is.
It's marked as the kind of what speed that needs to be at, just in case. But as of yet, it's kind of never moved, which is cool.
You won't change it until the next album.
No, exactly. Yeah. I don't need to get a second one. Right. One of the most used pedals on the board actually is the next one. It's the Echo Rack. So labelled. It's the Catlin Bred Echo Rack. I bought that from Pro Guitar Shop years ago. I got stung with import tax, I remember that much. But I remember Andy's demo went live the day it was released. I must have honestly been one of the first people that ever bought that, because I'd been waiting for something which was kind of Echo Rec inspired. Saw the video pop up, listened to it, thought that's for me, I'll buy that. Literally about 20 minutes after it was announced, you know. But it's never missed a beat. It's a phenomenal sounding pedal. And of all of the Echo Rec style pedals that I've had over the years, that's the one that's kind of been immovable, you know. So it's a cool sounding pedal. What it does particularly nicely is it can be fairly obnoxiously loud, and kind of the repeats can be fairly prominent if you need them to be, but if you play more dynamically, it turns into a kind of a reverb-esque kind of thing. It's a nice combination, you know. So if we kick that on. It's cool.
I love it.
Fairly ambient, I guess, but I guess the part of being the only guitar player in the band is you kind of have a little bit of your own space to kind of fill, you know. So when the quieter moments, it's nice to kind of use that almost as a synth pad, I guess, you know. You can get kind of fairly creative with it.
I was wondering that when you were playing, because I've as I said, I've watched a ton of your stuff online.
Oh, thank you, man.
And you do all this kind of ambient, trippy things. I'm wondering, do you get to work that into the context of
totally.
rock and band?
That's where it's come from, honestly. I guess it's not so much an isolated guitar thing, so much as, you know, working that within the context of the band, like you said, and that's where that's come from. That's where that's derived from, and that's a huge part of that. In conjunction with reverbs and trems and some more crazy stuff, it's the starting point of that cooler, weirder ambient stuff.
And it takes a really dynamic band that listens and watches, because some of that subtlety would be if you're with a basher.
I mean, if I find a subtle dynamic band, I'll let you know. But, I joke, they're great. You know, we're all kind of fairly conscious of what's going on around us. You know, so it's nice to have that freedom to be able to do that, and know that when you kind of roll it back, the band is going to follow you, and when you take off, they'll follow you again. So it's good fun.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. What's
onwards
next?
And upwards.
What else is hiding in here?
Oh man, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of talent enhancers. So next we have the HX Stomp XL from line 6. The harmonic tremolo you just heard on that last clip, that was from the HX Stomp. We've got the big cavernous delay that you heard earlier on the track with the wah pedal. We've got a slapback delay. Oh, we've got loads of delay on actually. Where's that coming from? That's the boss. Sorry. Got a slapback.
There we go.
Got a slightly longer delay. We've got a freeze kind of effect as well, undoubtedly derived from the Electro-Harmonix freeze, which is quite cool. So you get that kind of like. Again, it's synth paddy kind of
cool.
thing.
You know, although you like your style, you do all these kind of low droney things anyway, which is such a cool effect.
It's nice to work that into the context of the band as well. There's a couple of kind of more broken down verses in some songs where I'll set that go in as a little bit of a drone, and then it's just again being conscious of when you actually hit that button will dictate the volume of which it's set at. You know, if you hit a big old E chord and whack it on first, you're going to drown out everyone in the band. So it's quite a dynamic effect in that respect, I guess. But so the HX Stomp covers some of the kind of more weird stuff. There's a chorus for one track. It's great for almost kind of momentary effects. Like I've got a Thorpe Effects Deep Organ at home, which is an amazing sounding chorus pedal. It's kind of Thorpe size, so it's a fairly sizable pedal. which I would love to have on the board, but then that would take the place of something like the HX Stomp, which also does the trend, does the reverbs, does the delays, you know. So that's a little bit of a utility pedal, but it's helpful when all of the effects it does happens to do incredibly well.
Yeah, that's part of the compromise, right?
Yeah,
Space
totally.
and, you know.
Space and weight. Again, it's a heavy old beast, this pedal board. But lastly then, moving on, we've got the Starlight as well, again by UA. That's specifically for a track on our next record, which we're not playing live at the moment, as of yet. So I've no idea what the settings are on that as of now. But lastly, we've got the Boss RE202 Space Echo, which I love. It's, again, one of those pedals that's you kind of loath to turn off.
Yeah.
It's got multiple delays kind of saved in it. The first of which is for the first track of the set, very much kind of rhythmically set to that song. So that's baked in to the actual tempo of the song.
Oh, okay.
It's helpful.
So are you using like a MIDI thing? With
no, just basically tapped it out on the record, and it's good as well because it kind of makes sure that at least at one point in time that was the first track of the set.
Yeah.
So again, you're walking on hopefully to a kind of busy venue. You know, you get the kind of adrenaline pumping through. You want to play everything 3 times as quick.
Yeah.
So having something like that, which at the very least kind of grounds you and
pulling it back,
pulls you in and reins you in, you know, kind of keeps your adrenaline levels in check is helpful. But yeah, that's, you know, nice, you know, just to kind of have as a bit of an ambient kind of. That in conjunction with some reverbs and delays and all the kind of other crazy stuff is a really nice effect. And what it does, which I love even more because it annoys everyone else in the band, is this.
Oh, yeah.
Which again, you have to pick your moments for that. Because it,
you only get to do that 8 times a night.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
It.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
8.
No more, no less, crucially. But yeah, pity the people stood in the front row because that will relieve them of their eyebrows.
Right.
So
yeah, I bet in full flight that is
it's,
a jet taking off.
It's funny. We had on this run, we basically couldn't afford to bring our front of house with us because crew visas are pretty expensive. So we're kind of, I was going to say at the mercy. That sounds more derogatory than I intended to be because they've all been amazing so far. But obviously, kind of, it's varying every night from venue to venue. But one of the front of house engineers in Omaha the other day picked up on the fact that I'm not actually that loud on stage. I spent 12 years playing in a covers band, you know, playing weddings, playing funerals, playing bar mitzvahs. We'd celebrate any religion for the right price.
Right.
So I've done so many shows, you know, where you barely had a PA system. So I've kind of learned to mix myself on stage and be very conscious of if I'm too loud or if I'm too quiet. And again, with effects, you know, it's live mixing to a degree. It's knowing how wet you need to be. Then listening back to clips. I film most of the shows that we do routinely, not because I'm a narcissist and want to sit in the back of the van on the next show watching myself, but it's just interesting to watch back to see how things work in context. And
totally,
you know, even if it's like self-improvement, you know, you watch something back that at the moment you were doing it felt disastrous or felt terrible. In the cold light of day, it might be worse, or it might be not as bad as you thought it was. You know,
isn't that shocking? Those surprises.
Oh, absolutely. Things that, you know, often feel terrible in the moment are kind of passable, you know, at worst. So, but it's the same with effects. It's the same with sounds. It's the same with volume. Just watching stuff back, you know, it's you know, that's always my kind of top bit of advice for anyone who asks me for any. Why anyone would ask me for any ideas is beyond me. But if they do, it's just film yourself, film shows. You know, watch them back and see what you're doing well, see what you're not doing so well. So. In my case, it's a lot that I'm not doing well, but it's helpful just to learn, you know.
Yeah. Well, Chris, you always sound great to me, man.
Oh, man. Thank you. It's the magic of editing.
Yeah.
Man, honestly, this has been, like I said, I'm trying to play it cool, but it's a dream come true. So.
Oh, well, man, it's been such a pleasure, and congrats. Enjoy the rest of your U.S. tour, and
absolutely.
Come back soon.
Oh, man, we will absolutely be back. So, John.
Okay. Till next time, y'all.
Cheers, guys.